ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want to.
Come on, hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
I am a Nigerian, a highly cultured race. My culture abhors corruption, and with my integrity, a new Nigeria is possible. I say no to corruption today to build a future for my children. Join me and imbibe the culture of integrity to build a Nigeria of our dreams.
Speakers at a one-day policy dialogue on living wages and corruption in Nigeria rose with a unanimous decision that to effectively address living wages and corruption in Nigeria, it is important for government to focus on the provision of basic amenities and enabling environment for its citizens. This formed the fulcrum of the recently concluded 7th National Policy Dialogue, which was convoked by the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, ACAN, the research and training arm of ICPC at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Murna Barnabas Atiai. Today on the program, we shall beam our searchlight on the just concluded policy dialogue, which had the theme National Policy Dialogue on Living Wages and Corruption in Nigeria. Stay with us. If you're just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. In his welcome address, the ICPC chairman, Professor Bolaji Owasonye SAN, stated that corruption from poor living wages comes at a cost to society. He underscored the importance of the theme, saying the policy dialogue was not only timely but necessary, looking at Nigeria's current socio-economic realities, which calls for urgent, equitable living wage policy for the country.
The ICPC's research into this issue of inadequate living wages in Nigeria has revealed that while there have been several minimum wage policies since 1981 at least, little or no attention has been paid to actual living wages for workers, especially public servants. In other words, it is possible for government to every now and then increase the wage, but it is a different matter entirely whether that increase actually translates into living wages for public servants. At the end of this dialogue, it is expected that each stakeholder participating in this session would develop and contribute a set of indicators relevant to the working conditions and schedules of their primary constituencies in order for us to enrich the National Living Wage Policy document. And this event is very timely because we know there's an ongoing conversation between the government and the labor unions towards improving the situation and arriving at a realistic wage for public servants. Your contributions as key stakeholders should be data-driven and should be based on scientific forecasts of likely economic changes in the near to long-term future to properly guide policy direction and cost of living adjustment. This, we hope, will reduce and possibly eradicate the frequent disputes between the government and its workforce, which mostly arise as a result of sudden economic shocks or pressures from rent seekers. This policy dialogue on living wages and corruption becomes necessary when we take cognizance of the fact that the public service is the vehicle through which government at all levels deliver a broad range of public goods and services to the people. Invariably, a corrupt public service inhibits the distribution and timely supply of public goods and services in equal measure to every citizen, thereby marginalizing the weaker and more vulnerable segments of the nation's population.
Declaring the event open, the Honorable Minister of Labour and Employment, His Excellency Simon Bako Lalong, who was represented by Alex Olebe, a director in the ministry, noted that the federal government was working towards making life more meaningful for workers and Nigerians in fulfilling its renewed hope agenda for unity and prosperity for all.
I wish to say that the importance of a dialogue such as this cannot be overemphasized because the task of reducing corruption has been one major challenge facing governments and policymakers, either in the developed or developed countries across the world. As you are all aware, poor reward system contributes in sharp practices outside of existence of greed and need-based corruptive tendencies by individuals. This further manifests in prevalence of inequalities, lack of quality services, lack of investment by organizations resulting in low economic growth and development, amongst others. It is against this backdrop that I urge all leaders of thought participating in this dialogue to utilize this opportunity to extensively deliberate on ways and means living wage issues can be handled to prevent corruption in and outside the workplaces for socio-economic development in the interests of all and sundry.
In their goodwill messages, the Chairman, National Salaries and Wages Commission, Mr. Ekbonta, the President, Trade Union Congress, Engineer Festus Osifo, represented by Dr. Tommy Etim Okon, who is also the President of the Association Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria, representatives of the National Labour Congress, and Head of Service, all noted that with the current minimum wage being paid workers, so many Nigerians are condemned to poverty unless they have some means of taking advantage of the system to corruptly empower themselves.
I want to refer you to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, which is the ground norm for the ICPC Act, for which you are here to represent. The United Convention Against Corruption recognized certain principles before we begin to talk about living wages, and I have to mention this here, failing which you will not arrive at that. The first principle that is enunciated there is that the systems for recruitment, retention, promotion, and retirement of public officials and other non-elected officials shall be based on the principles of efficiency, effectiveness, merit, equity, and aptitude. B, public officials shall be provided with adequate remuneration and pay scales. It's there. C, special preventive measures must be applied for corruption-prone positions. These include the application of the 4 I's principle: rotation and pre-screening, integrity training and specific checks and audits, lifestyle monitoring, and training for career development, including ethics training. Living wages should be more than cash. It should include conditions of service. It should also include external factors that will impact on whatever you're getting. As we look forward to engage government on negotiation of the new national minimum wage anytime from now, it is incumbent on us, especially the implementers of government policy, to take a critical look at where we are and where we ought to be and where we are going to as workers, because we have our right. And we believe that if our right is not well attended to, well cared for, well gathered for, it therefore means that we are talking corruption as a lip service. How do we think that a worker can pay his house rent? How do you think a worker can pay the children's school fee? How do you think a worker can care for, even by African standard and culture, extended family without living wage? And if you pay living wage without also considering the fact that there should be free and compulsory education from primary to university, you are not given any living wage. If you are given a living wage without taking cognizance of the transportation situation
situation in the country, you are not giving living wage. If you are giving any wage without taking cognizance of the health of Nigerian workers, you are not giving any. And I want to say this. Contributory Pension Act came into force. The managers of government decided to play down on gratuity. A permanent secretary told me that he never knew they stopped the payment of gratuity. That is a lump sum which would have acted as a gratis to tell you thank you. The cry today for pension wouldn't have been an issue if a worker retired with a gratification that has given the worker a stability. And mark you, you have used us for 35 years, or 40 years, or 60 years, whichever comes first, and at the end, you allow us to live in penury, begging for pension, which you know, pensions come monthly. It is a sad situation. And our children will wait and say, my dad is working, my mom is working. And they come home to ask, we have not paid our school fees. The landlord will be worrisome. Where is our rent? Your Excellencies, I want to plead for us to make Nigerian worker very articulate and productive. The living wage is very important. I thank you as we go to the
The keynote speaker, Professor Dafe Otobo, a retired professor of industrial relations, University of Lagos, Nigeria, in his presentation, noted that the benefits of living wage would boost employee satisfaction and higher productivity.
A living wage should give workers and their families the means to maintain a decent standard of living by affording, the word affording, housing, healthcare, food, education, transport, mobility, and other basic necessities. That it benefits the companies, whether public or private, because some of the load is taken over from their shoulders by the state, whether at the federal, state, or local government level. That it reduces corporate turnover. Employees are much happier and leads to higher productivity, and indeed lowers recruitment and training costs.
You're still watching Corruption Must Go. The policy dialogue also featured a robust panel discussion on the theme, anchored by Comrade Issa Aremu, MNI, Director General, Michael Imodu National Institute of Labor Studies. It had various stakeholders who bear their minds on the subject matter.
Why do we need living wages?
A very important reason we need to have a living wage in Nigeria is because it will help us redistribute income. Income inequality is very high in Nigeria. One way to measure income inequality is by using the Gini coefficient. And if you look at our Gini coefficient compared to our peers, even compared to South Africa, you find that Gini coefficient in Nigeria is very high, which simply shows that income inequality is high. And one way to redistribute income is to increase the living wage. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with this, the 590% argument, or issue, a fact, in relation to the financial sector, the banking sector, which says that over 90% of deposits you have there are actually owned by less than 10% of depositors. So that tells you that there is very high inequality in the country, and one way to help redistribute that is to increase the wages of workers, to pay living wage. Another reason we need to do that is because if you increase living wage, or the wages of workers, if you pay living wage, you also enable savings. It's only when people earn more that they can have something to save. And when you don't have savings, economic theory says, as savings translate to investments. So one of the reasons we are having low investments in this country today, one, because of poor income distribution, and two, of course, tied to low savings. People are not saving And because people are not saving, you can't have a corresponding increase in investment. And we have also seen that even manifesting in the stock market. In the stock market where you have very low level of retail investors. And why do we have low level of retail investors participating in our markets today? It is because, again, people don't have savings. So you would boost savings when you pay living wage.
So if you work, even after talking here now, and no institution picks up the facts of our discussion here, nothing is going to happen. We publish reports in the media. Institutions, good institutions like ICPC, published records, they are facts. But the institutions of governance that are supposed to use those things to improve the public sector, to take care of the national treasury, if they don't do that, there will be no money to pay the living wage until we take care of the public sector. We take care of what is now another elephant, the debt burden. What we use from the budget to service debt every year, we're not talking about it. Subsidy that has assumed a new name and a new profile. They say it has been removed, it's gone. But nobody can say for sure in this room really whether it is gone. Because people are beginning to speak in tongues about where it has gone to or where it is hanging.
When the Minister of FCT took over, he cried when he visited the Abuja city metro line. It was completed over 80%, but ultimately vandalized by more than 60%. The monies that we need now to repair those vandalized infrastructure and get it working is 400 times more than the money we needed to complete the project. Who is responsible for that? Us, government workers. Somebody is supposed to provide surveillance. Somebody is supposed to provide security. Somebody is supposed to monitor. But we have refused to allow all these things worked. As a very junior government official, we were around when Mariam Ababcha Medical Center was commissioned. And that hospital that is called National Hospital today, they use only sand and water from Nigeria. Everything was brought from Germany. We had the best of a medical facility in Africa existing in Abuja. Today you go there with malaria, you come out with something else. The entire infrastructure has collapsed. And we are supposed to be the managers of that infrastructure. With failures like this, I wonder how we'll be able to provide that service, generate earning and income for government to look at our salaries, wages, and improve that for us. And this is the same story that we find in the entire public service. So my question is, or my response to Malam Isa Ademusa is, how many of us have been able to drive along with public service reforms in the interest of the life of the common man on the street? We have seen an example in ICPC, not because the chairman is here. We invited him for a program, he came. We are more interested as government workers in what comes to us personally than what we give out. As long as we are not playing the game by the rule on what it should be, there can't be improvement anywhere vis-a-vis the salaries or the wages or the so-called living wage that we want to earn. We have to work. We must work, make the system work, so that out of whatever is being reaped by government will be paid the living wage. No matter how much we are paid, if as drivers of service delivery, we are not driving properly, we are not allowing things to work the way they are supposed to work, we cannot get anything out of that.
So I'm quite excited to moderate these sessions. And I think we just have to revisit those frequently ask questions. How do we make workers to be workers, not working poor, not even working beggars? I've seen it, even me as a DG who lives on minimum wage like any other DG. You know, you see every day, you're at the airport, you say, comrades, your boys are here. Happy weekend. Even when it is Monday, it's happy weekend. You know, so, I mean, there was once in Nigeria in which once you have job, it's a race out of poverty, you know, because your pay can take you home, can address all those basic needs of the workers, which Professor Otobo had given us the template very well. I think we need to return back to good old days in which working people can live on their salaries and pay.
The issue of corruption in Nigeria runs deep, intertwining with various aspects of the society. But it is said that if public servants are paid peanuts, we can only expect monkey service. It is necessary, therefore, to take into cognizance that a living wage is not just about cash salaries paid to public servants, but the condition of service, healthcare, education, transportation, electricity, amongst others. When the issue of the living wage and condition of service of public servants are addressed, the motivation for corruption will be reduced. That's our package on today's edition. See you again next week. Bye for now.